Hello, nice to see you all here again, talking about the Salesforce resume and job application process. We're going to do some introductions. Then we'll talk about your resume, what it is and what its purpose is. We'll talk about job applications, how to go ahead and apply for positions of interest to you. And then we will take a deep dive into the saasguru Slack community and show off some of the features there. First, a little bit about myself. My name's Eric Dreshfield. I have been in the Salesforce ecosystem about 14 years now. I've been a Salesforce MVP since 2013 and in the MVP Hall of Fame since 2020. I am probably most known for being the founder of Midwest Dreamin, one of the largest community conferences that's out in the world today. Midwest Dreamin started in 2011. It was in Chicago for 6 years after its first year in Louisville, Kentucky, and it will be in Minneapolis, Minnesota this coming July. This coming August. It was July last summer. If you're interested in joining us, please just feel free to go to midwestdreamin.com and learn more about that event. And the one thing about me and the Salesforce ecosystem, I always tell people that I think the greatest strength of the ecosystem is all the people that you can meet and all the connections that you can share. So please feel free to connect with me. You can see all the various places below on the screen. I believe I'm the only Eric Dreshfield out there, so I'm pretty easy to find if you don't happen to be able to get to the links where these are. So should be pretty easy. All right, so the first thing that we want to talk about today is what's a resume? You know, everybody has probably seen a resume, you probably created one. So most of us probably know what it is. And in the very basic terminology, a resume should include your contact information, your work and your volunteer experience, and your education, technical, and even some life skills, perhaps. The one you see on the screen is just a sample that I found. There are certainly many varieties of resumes, many different formats, but they all really have the same basic functionality and purpose, and that really is just to show off who you are, what you know, and the things that you have done in your past, as well as a brief snapshot of where it is you'd like to go and some of the things that you may want to accomplish further in your career. So thinking about that, you've kind of built a resume. So what's next, right? What's the resume really out there for? What's it stand for? What's the purpose? Essentially, it's to match candidates with employment opportunities. It's your way of communicating to a potential employer, hey, here I am, take a look at my skills. Let me know if you want to talk to me, that type of thing. But really above and beyond that, the purpose of the resume and why you need to focus in on it pretty tightly is it helps you stand out in a crowd. Today's job market is really tight. There's a lot of people out there looking for jobs these days. And so you need to do something with your resume that's gonna get you noticed. It's gonna make sure that you are the top of the list, so to speak, when someone is reviewing resumes. So make sure you kind of figure out what that looks like, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a moment. But not only does the resume really match the right person for the right job, it also really matches the right job for the right person. It goes both ways. It helps you figure out what jobs are appropriate for you, what it is you really want to do, and then helps you get to that point. So how does it do that, right? Um, what else should you include? When you're making a job application, should you include a cover letter? Um, so you see my first bullet point there. Is that even a question? In my mind, yes, absolutely. You should include a cover letter whenever you're applying for a position, assuming they give you the opportunity to do that. And the reason for that really is the cover letters are opportunity to make it personal. If you were referred to the opportunity, that job opportunity by a specific individual at that company, here's your chance to call them out in the cover letter. Say, hey, John referred me to this position. Here's how I know John. Or if you saw this particular company at an event somewhere and had a really good conversation with them at that point in time, call that out in your cover letter. Anything you can do to help personalize the cover letter to make you stand out, as I mentioned earlier, is going to make you a little bit more memorable for the people reviewing the applications. And chances are that may help you gain at least that initial interview where you can start having a real good conversation about who you are and what your skills are. Be sure to include how you learned about the role. And as I mentioned, if someone referred you to it as well. And more importantly, probably the cover letter is really there for you to be able to showcase your Salesforce knowledge. I know a lot of you probably are new to the ecosystem and you may not have a lot of hands-on Salesforce experience yet, but this is your opportunity to showcase the things that you've already learned. If you took the Trailhead, for example, or went through some online courses, and as a result of those, you built an app, even if it was nothing more than maybe tracking your child's homework assignments. Now's your opportunity to call that out. Just let the people know that you're sending this letter to. Hey, I utilize Salesforce for some things that I do at home. I built an app to help me track my child's homework assignments. I can log in when they did it. I can log in the grades that they got and kind of track their own progress through all of that. The application process, as I mentioned earlier, it really is your only chance to make a good first impression. You only get one chance at making the first impression. So make sure your application is complete. Make sure you include all the information that they ask for. And of course, a cover letter and a resume. Make sure that you include all of those things. But what are some of the things that you can do to help stand out? As I started to talk about earlier, um, obviously you want to make sure that your resume and your cover letter are grammatically accurate. For some people, it's very easy for them to just uh, read through anything, and their mind and their eyes just quickly highlight typos or things that aren't grammatically accurate. So even if that means you need to solicit the help from a friend to just review things, please do that. Spend a little extra time to do that. Um, and make sure that you've got those bases covered. Um, when you're making the application, a lot of companies have the ability to in their application process answer that question: who was it that referred you to this position, or how did you learn about this position? Again, so if you did get a referral from a friend or a coworker, a former coworker, or someone that you know that just works at that organization, um, point that out. And what are some ways of doing that? If you're looking at an organization and you're looking to see if you know someone there, LinkedIn is a great place to check to see if you know someone at that company. If you got some connections, kind of think about how you connected with those individuals and why, and then maybe reach out to one or two of them and say, hey, I'm interested in this particular position at your organization. I'm wondering if there's a referral process that you can send me through that will help get my application noticed a little bit more. And sometimes companies do have processes like that, where the person who was referring you to that will then send you a link and you can apply directly through that link. Or other times that person may ask for your resume and your cover letter and they will submit it for you on your behalf. All of those things can hopefully help you get a little bit closer to the top of the pile and get a little bit more eyes on your resume and your application and get you that interview that you're looking for. Now, a lot of times when I have been going through job applications, especially in the last few years, one of the things that I've seen is there's always this open-ended question at the end of the application process. Is there anything else we should know? Is kind of what the company's saying. Tell us everything else that we didn't already ask you. Might be one way for you to look at that particular question. What are the things about you that maybe your resume and your cover letter don't really explain? Or some of the things that that maybe just need a little bit more clarity and explanation because of perhaps how you got to where you are in your point in your career, or why you chose to take the path that you did. Any of those kinds of things, like I said, that's a great way to help yourself stand out amongst other people in this wild world of many applications for one position. So keep in mind all those things that you can do to help yourself stand out in the crowd. with the job market as tight as it is today, um, unfortunately, sometimes you won't even get responses back on positions that you're applying for, or you may get a very quick response back, just the automated response, we've received your resume and your application, but then you may not hear anything else beyond that. If you do know people at the company that may have referred you, if it's been a week or 2 weeks, or perhaps longer, and you still haven't heard anything, it couldn't hurt to reach out to them just to say, "Hey, I appreciate you referring me to this role. I did my application for it. Still haven't heard anything. Just curious if you know anything on your end, if you can tell if the position's still available, anything like that, just to try to help you gain a little bit more knowledge about the company." And their process and where they are. Um, of course, do your research about the company. That'll help you understand who you know that's working there and who you might be able to ask for some help with getting your application noticed too. So as you can see, there are a lot of channels here in saasguru's Slack instance. I probably am not even connected to all the channels here, but like most Slack instances, there's a general channel for literally any type of conversation that you like, announcements, feedback. But I think the more important ones within this particular Slack is the Ask for Help channel. It's a great place to go if you have a specific question on how to do something within Salesforce and get some answers. As you can see, here's one question. There are two objects. One is the contact object, standard object, and one is a custom object. They kind of explain the whole process, and they're looking for some more information. And you see someone here has replied, hopefully helping them out with what they need to do. Besides the Ask for Help channel, the celebration time one is always fun. It's always nice to know when people gain a new certification and you can help them feel proud about what they've accomplished by sharing in their celebrations. And just quick glance at this particular one, you can see all the reactions and the comments below for this individual earning their platform developer certification. Some other ones that are important here, I think the Salesforce Open Jobs channel. Obviously, if you're looking for a new job, that would be your first place to go, because there are a lot of roles that get posted in this particular channel. I think if I scroll up a little bit further, if I feel like there were a couple of people that posted multiple roles here, all at the same time. You can certainly go back in and see all the details there. What advice would you give to entry-level professionals trying to break into the Salesforce ecosystem? The current job market can make you feel defeated sometimes. Definitely a valid statement that the current market can take some of the wind out of your sails. But there are still plenty of jobs available within the Salesforce ecosystem. The struggle that you're facing is probably just finding the right opportunity for you, and that sometimes that takes time. I've been in the ecosystem 14 years, and I know I've seen people get into the ecosystem, gain a certification, get their first job within just a couple of months. I've also seen it take a year and a half for other individuals to find the role that they felt was really the right one for them. I think the easiest way to kind of keep yourself motivated is just to keep learning. Jump into a new certification and do more studying, perhaps. If you can connect with an opportunity to do some volunteer work utilizing a Salesforce, whether that's at a nonprofit or another organization, or even potentially finding an internship where you can get some guided assistance with doing some work in Salesforce. That's certainly another way to help keep your skills going and keep yourself motivated. I really feel like there's enough opportunities out there for everyone that's currently looking for a role. They just need to keep checking, keep looking until they find the role that's right for them. You see, we have another question. How can we state the technical knowledge we have when the only experience we have is Trailhead? That's a really great question, and I think that's one that's probably a challenge for a lot of people right now, because there are so many new people in this ecosystem. Obviously, you can share badges that you've earned on Trailhead, but that could get pretty long because there are so many badges. If you have a certification, that certainly helps clarify that a little bit. That can condense some of your knowledge into that certification piece. But some other ways that you might be able to show off some of the technical knowledge that you gained. I touched on it earlier about building an app, utilizing the skills you've built, and making that app about something that you do at home, or that maybe you've done on a previous job. Try to create an app to cover some of the work that maybe you did on a previous job, or even in your current role if you're working somewhere else, even if it's outside of Salesforce. For example, you're a call center agent at a software company, and you spend your day on the phone with customers talking to them about their problems, and helping them solve them. Build an app to track those things. I think that would be a great way to show off what you're doing. I know at one point, I think there were, I mean, you could even put your Trailblazer ID, or that the link to your Trailblazer ID on the website. I'm sorry, not on the website, on your resume, on your cover letters. That way people can simply see who you are on the community that way, and get to your Salesforce credentials a little bit easier. Can someone with a high school degree but only a couple of certifications break into the job market? That's a really awesome question too. I think that's very possible these days for that to happen. Over the last probably 3 to 5 years, I think the market has realized that formal education, like a college degree, is not necessarily as important as it maybe once was, or as the market would have thought it was 15, 20, 25 years ago. I think today there's a lot more emphasis on the practical and the hands-on experience, and the things that you can do to showcase all the things that you have accomplished through that. I think can get you places as well. One of the other things that I've seen some people do is to build out a profile or a portfolio, if you will, on Trailhead, to showcase everything they've accomplished through that. And you can certainly utilize that as part of your job application process too, is to show off that portfolio and your skills through that. One more question coming in. How do I get help on ideas, thoughts on job solution architecting? Something like mentor who is always available for help. That's a great question too. And I didn't actually show that. I'm still on the Slack channel here. Well, there is a channel there where you can book a mentor, where you can basically get some one-on-one help on all sorts of different questions. I think that would be a great topic for a one-on-one mentor to try to help you through what that looks like. I assume, Vicky, by job solution architecting, what you're thinking about is trying to figure out what it is you really would like to do, what the ideal role is for you, um, and how to talk about that. Um, if you're implying something else, or what you're thinking is different, just chime in and let's talk about that a little bit more. All right. So, what else? What am I missing in the Slack channel? Oh, the introductions channel is a great one too, as well. That's your opportunity to introduce yourself to all the other members in this Slack community. You can see the couple that are on the screen. It's individuals telling people where they're from, what they're focusing in on, maybe some of the skills they already have. Like this individual here has a good understanding of Java, HTML, CSS, but they're looking to build their career in the Salesforce ecosystem. So make sure, if you're new to the Slack channel, the Slack for saasguru, please get out to the intros channel and put your own introduction out there. That way people will learn who you are, and certainly offer up some assistance when maybe you have some specific questions as well. Here we go. Here we are now seeing the saasguru homepage, and you can just scroll through this. Obviously, you can see kind of the impact they've already made, how many learners, talks about their platform, and what you can do with it. A couple things Further up on the page that I would point out would be the boot camp tab. Go to that real quick. And that is talks about additional boot camps that are out there. You can see the upcoming cohorts they've got coming up in early March. And you'll notice one thing I do want to point out really quick, the associate boot camp, for those of you who may not have that particular certification, the next one actually just started a couple of days ago, but that's a free one. So maybe you can keep an eye out for the next one of those. Maybe that one will still be a free one coming up soon. But these are more detailed, obviously. You can see here 16 weeks in length, 9 weeks in length. So it is a bigger time commitment on your part to do the boot camps and to learn, but certainly it would be beneficial for you. The next tab to talk about here is the live classes. Obviously, you already seen this one because that's where you found the class that we're in right now and this conversation we're having today. So you can scroll through here and see the additional ones that are out there. Lots of different topics, lots of different speakers. You can see the next one that I'm talking about here or speaking on is March 14th, and it talks about the interview and beyond. So once you've gotten an interview, we'll talk about the things you need to keep in mind and how to present yourself during an interview, and then what to do after the interview's over to try to help yourself stay in the running for a role. I do see another question in the chat, so let me get back to that real quick. How do I get job opportunities in India without a hands-on experience in projects, as the job opportunities that I see require experience in Salesforce? And this individual says they are looking for an opportunity as a QA for which there are no certifications or super badges that you can really do on Trailhead. That is a really great question, and that's um, certainly a struggle. I think a little bit more so there. Um, I'm assuming that maybe you have some QA skills in your background, and that's why you'd kind of like to still focus there. Um, and maybe pointing that out would help in your opportunities. Um, but yeah, I think that particular skill, even though there aren't trails or badges for that particular one, um, I think the process you've gone through to do QA work elsewhere would still be very, very similar within the Salesforce ecosystem and the platform and the opportunities that you might come about here. Um, One of the things that I might suggest is perhaps the business analyst certification, because that QA could be part of the role that a BA does as well. Obviously, the administrator certification certainly would be beneficial to almost everyone searching for a position in this ecosystem as well, as a starting point for sure. Would having coding experience help someone stand out if they're applying to an admin role? As strange as it sounds, in my opinion, yes, that does, because that is more experience within the ecosystem, perhaps, or even just through structured coding elsewhere. I think the thought process that maybe you have to go through to be a coder um, helps you be able to think about um, problem solving from the higher level, from a bigger picture, I suppose. You're not necessarily just so focused in on one particular task, but it's always a good idea to keep in mind what other things, the changes that you're going to make through code might impact. So from an admin role perspective, very similar things could happen if you make a change to a field. For example, it's going to impact all the reports that are pulling from that field. So you're certainly going to have to understand all that and be able to make all the appropriate changes as well. I do see one more question. Any tips to write a tailored resume for multiple jobs? I think the better place to tailor things is almost in your cover letter. Um, but certainly on the resume, most resumes have that objective section where you're stating what you're looking for. Certainly that would be a great place to customize that, depending on what it is you're applying to and the specifics of those roles. But certainly if you're if you're applying, maybe you're applying to multiple roles at one organization, and maybe that's what this question is about. If that's the case, I think the cover letter would certainly be a place to point out that you're interested in a couple of different roles at the organization, and include the titles of those roles for the individuals who are doing the review, so they know which ones that they should be considering you for. How would you format your resume if you're coming from a completely different career background? For example, my past experience has been 13 years in cosmetology. That's a really awesome question, and you certainly would still want to include the work that you've done in your prior career. Um, that's a point of that some people would argue that if it's not relevant to the job you're looking for, that you don't need to include it. But I tend to view that slightly differently. If you think about where you're coming from and the functions that you performed and how you did your job there, um, you're going to find some transferable skills. You're going to discover um, you had to talk to customers and understand what they were really interested in, and they may not have exactly used the right words. So your ability to kind of read between the lines and ask the right questions to help communicate their proper desires, is something that I'm sure you have lots of experience with as well, to get to the end point that was desired. So make sure you talk about those things while you're talking about the skills that you used in that prior career. Um, I guess you could say those may be the softer skills rather than the harder skills like the technical aspect of Salesforce. But certainly those are equally as important when you're trying to find a role. There are a couple of organizations out there that um, play the matchmaker role, if you will, between other organizations that need some help with Salesforce and those that are looking to do the volunteer work. Um, I think Catch a Fire is one of those organizations. I'm trying to remember the name of the other one. It's escaping me at the moment. Be something you could do. Um, there's probably something in the Slack instance even, where people have talked about that. So you could go there and search for the keyword volunteer or volunteering, and see what other people have talked about already. Well, again, thanks everybody for joining us today. Keep an eye out for future sessions, not just the ones I'm hosting, but there are a lot of gurus sharing their knowledge through these live classes, and please feel free to check all those out as well.